Long before factories filled the valleys with the sound of iron machines, before steam engines crossed the countryside, before cities grew larger than the rivers beside them, there was another sound that people depended upon: the slow, steady rhythm of a great Roman watermill. Its giant wooden wheel turned day and night, not because someone pushed it, not because horses pulled it, but because a quiet river had faithfully carried water through the valley for centuries. The river never hurried, the mill never rested. Together, they fed an entire region. Far from Rome itself, where rolling hills met fertile farmland, a broad river curved gently through a peaceful valley. Its waters were remarkably clear. Children often counted fish swimming beneath the surface. Farmers filled wooden buckets from its banks. Travelers stopped to wash away the dust of long journeys. And every morning, long before sunrise, the river awakened the mill. The building stood proudly upon a foundation of smooth limestone. Its walls were built from pale stone gathered from nearby hills. A roof of weathered red clay tiles protected the machinery inside. Large oak beams supported the upper floors. Tiny windows welcomed the morning light. Smoke drifted lazily through a single chimney throughout the colder months. To strangers, it looked like an ordinary building. To the valley, it was the heartbeat of everyday life. Beside the mill, the enormous water wheel began to move. The river entered a carefully built stone channel. Its gentle current pushed against each broad wooden paddle. The wheel answered with a deep, comforting rhythm, turn after turn after turn. No sudden movements, no loud crashes, only patient work. The same movement repeated thousands of times each day, year after year, generation after generation. Inside the mill, massive oak gears quietly awakened. Each wooden tooth fit perfectly into the next. The great millstones above slowly began to rotate. One stone remained still, the other turned with graceful precision. Between them, golden wheat became soft flour. Without haste, without waste, only the quiet power of flowing water. The mill belonged to a family that had cared for it longer than anyone could remember. Its keeper was a man named Gaius. He was neither wealthy nor famous. His name appeared in no Roman history. No emperor ever invited him to the capital. Yet every farmer in the valley knew him. Every baker greeted him warmly. Every child smiled when he walked through the village carrying fresh flour. Gaius believed one simple thing: if people have bread, they have hope. Every morning followed the same peaceful rhythm. Before dawn, Gaius crossed the small wooden bridge leading to the mill. He paused halfway, not because he was tired, but because he always greeted the river. He watched the water flowing beneath him, sometimes calm, sometimes swollen after heavy rain, sometimes covered with thin winter ice, yet always moving, always faithful. Only then did he unlock the heavy oak door. Inside, the familiar scent welcomed him: fresh timber, ground wheat, cool stone, a faint smell of river water carried by the turning wheel. Sunlight entered through the eastern windows, filling the floating flour dust with tiny golden beams. For a brief moment, the entire room seemed filled with countless drifting stars. Gaius smiled every time he saw them. Soon the first farmer arrived. His cart carried sacks of freshly harvested wheat. His 2 oxen walked slowly after the long journey from the fields. "Good morning, Gaius. And to you. The harvest looks strong this year. The river has been kind," the farmer answered. Gaius nodded towards the turning wheel outside. "So has the mill." Together, they carried the heavy grain inside, not as strangers, but as neighbors who had shared countless harvests together. As the first sack of golden wheat was poured gently into the great wooden hopper, the millstones began their quiet work. Soft flour drifted into waiting baskets below. Outside, the river continued flowing through the valley exactly as it always had. Neither the river nor the mill could imagine that together they would continue serving farmers for nearly 800 years. The morning sun climbed slowly above the eastern hills. Its golden light spread across the valley, touching the river long before it reached the mill. The flowing water shimmered like polished glass. Tiny fish darted between smooth stones beneath the clear current. Dragonflies hovered above the reeds. Everything moved quietly. Everything followed its own gentle rhythm. Gaius opened every wooden shutter. Fresh morning air drifted through the mill. The scent of damp timber mixed with freshly ground flour. He checked the great millstones with practiced hands, running his fingers carefully along their rough surfaces. A good miller never trusted only his eyes. He trusted touch. He trusted sound. He trusted experience. The great water wheel continued turning outside. Each slow rotation powered a network of enormous oak gears hidden beneath the floor. Visitors often believed the machinery must be incredibly complicated. Gaius smiled whenever he heard that. "The river does the difficult work," he always said. "The mill simply listens." Not long after sunrise, a young apprentice hurried across the wooden bridge. His name was Titus. Only 16 years old, he had begun learning the trade the previous spring. Every morning he arrived carrying the same small leather satchel. Inside, a loaf of bread, a wooden cup, a sharpening stone, and a notebook filled with sketches of gears and water channels. Gaius greeted him warmly. "You're early." Titus grinned. "I wanted to hear the wheel before everyone arrived." The old miller nodded with approval. "Then close your eyes." Titus obeyed. For a full minute, neither of them spoke. The only sounds came from the valley, the steady splash of water, the quiet turning of oak gears, birdsong drifting from nearby trees, the soft whisper of flour falling into wooden bins. Finally, Gaius asked, "What did you hear?" Titus smiled. "The river." Gaius gently shook his head. "You heard the mill breathing." Soon, more farmers began arriving. Some came with wagons pulled by sturdy oxen. Others led patient donkeys carrying sacks across their backs. A few elderly farmers walked beside handcarts built many years earlier. No one hurried. Harvest season was busy, but life in the valley had never been rushed. Each farmer greeted the others by name. News traveled almost as quickly as the river. Outside the mill, a small waiting area overlooked the water. Simple wooden benches rested beneath tall willow trees. While their grain waited to be ground, the farmers shared stories. Fresh cheese, apples from nearby orchards, and warm bread baked only hours earlier. Children skipped stones across the river. Old friends laughed softly together. The mill had become more than a workplace. It had quietly become the heart of the valley.
As the morning continued, a baker arrived from the nearby village. His horse pulled an empty cart. By sunset, it would be filled with sacks of fresh flour. "Gaius," he called cheerfully, "I hope you've saved some of your finest." The Gaius laughed. "I never make anything else." The baker smiled. "My customers would agree." Inside, Titus carefully watched every movement. He measured grain, adjusted wooden chutes, swept loose flour from the floor. Occasionally, he stopped simply to admire the machinery. The giant gears never seemed to argue. Each wooden tooth fit perfectly into the next. Every wheel depended upon another. No single part claimed importance. Together, they created something far greater than themselves. Just before midday, Gaius walked to a narrow staircase leading beneath the mill. Few visitors ever came here. The air was cooler. The sound of rushing water echoed gently through the stone chamber. Here, the great axle connected directly to the turning water wheel. The ancient oak beam had supported the machinery for generations. Gaius rested one hand upon its smooth surface. His father had done the same, his grandfather before him. Carved quietly into the timber, almost hidden beneath centuries of careful repairs, were a few simple words. "Care for the river, and the river will care for you." Titus looked at the old carving in silence. Then he asked softly, "Who wrote that?" Gaius smiled. "No one remembers anymore. And perhaps that's exactly how its author hoped it would be."
The afternoon sun settled gently over the valley. Its warm light reflected across the slow-moving river, turning the surface into shimmering ribbons of gold. The great water wheel continued its endless work, turn after turn after turn. Its rhythm had become so familiar that the villagers rarely noticed it anymore. Yet, if the wheel ever stopped, everyone would. Inside the mill, the scent of freshly ground flour filled every room. Soft white dust floated lazily through beams of sunlight. Titus carefully swept the wooden floor, while Gaius inspected each of the great oak gears. He paused beside one enormous cogwheel. Its polished teeth had been turning for decades, perhaps longer. He smiled quietly. Good craftsmanship grows gracefully. Titus nodded. "My father says the same about people." Gaius chuckled. "A wise man." A gentle knock echoed from the doorway. An elderly woman stepped inside, carrying a woven basket covered with linen cloth. Everyone in the valley knew her. Her name was Helena. She baked bread for nearly every family living along the river. The smell from her basket filled the room before she spoke. Fresh loaves, still warm. "I brought today's first batch." She smiled. "And I came to thank the mill." Titus looked surprised. "The mill?" Helena laughed softly. "Without flour, there is no bread. And without bread, there are very few smiles." Gaius accepted one warm loaf. He broke it carefully into 3 pieces. One for Helena, one for Titus, one for himself. The crust cracked gently. Steam drifted into the cool afternoon air. For a few quiet moments, no one hurried to speak.
Fresh bread deserved silence. Outside, the riverbank had become lively. Children skipped flat stones across the water. A fisherman repaired his nets beneath a willow tree. Two shepherds guided their flocks toward the western pasture. A merchant stopped his wagon beneath the shade to let his horses drink. The mill overlooked it all, not proudly, simply patiently, like an old friend watching the valley grow older. Later that afternoon, a traveler arrived unlike the others. His clothing was plain, his sandals carried the dust of many roads. Across his shoulder hung a leather satchel filled with rolled parchments. He introduced himself politely. "My name is Quintus. I'm studying Roman mills." Titus smiled immediately. "You've come to the right place." Quintus slowly walked around the great water wheel. He measured its height with careful eyes, examined the stone channel guiding the river, studied every oak beam supporting the machinery. Finally, he opened his notebook. "I visited 7 mills this year," he said quietly, "but none sound like this one." Titus looked puzzled. "They all grind grain?" Quintus nodded. "Yes, but every mill has its own voice." Gaius invited the traveler inside. Together they climbed to the upper floor where sacks of fresh grain rested neatly in rows. Quintus looked through the small eastern window toward the river. "I think I understand," he whispered. "The water doesn't strike the wheel, it greets it." Gaius smiled warmly. "My grandfather would have liked you." As evening approached, the day's final sacks of wheat were poured into the hopper. The millstones continued turning with steady patience. No rush, no waste. Only quiet work. Outside, the shadows grew longer across the valley. Birds returned to their nests. The baker's wagon rolled slowly home, carrying enough flour for tomorrow's bread. The river flowed onward, unconcerned with the passing hours. Before locking the mill for the evening, Gaius carried a small oil lantern down to the lower water chamber. Titus followed. There, carved into the oldest stone beside the water channel, was an unusual symbol, a simple circle, surrounded by 8 tiny wheat stalks. Quintus leaned closer. "I've seen this mark before." Gaius looked surprised. "You have?" Quintus nodded slowly. "It appears only on the oldest Roman mills, built by the same forgotten master builder, whose name has disappeared from history."
Long after the last farmer had returned home, the valley became wonderfully quiet. The river continued flowing beneath the moonlight. The great wooden wheel still turned slowly, not because anyone remained inside the mill, but because Gaius believed the machinery should never stop completely. A slow-moving wheel stayed healthy, just as a flowing river stayed clean. The traveler, Quintus, stood outside beneath the stars. He listened. The sound of the turning wheel blended perfectly with the river. It was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Early the next morning, mist floated gently across the valley. The first rays of sunlight touched the top of the water wheel. Tiny drops of dew sparkled on every wooden paddle. Birds gathered along the riverbank. A family of ducks glided quietly downstream. The mill awakened exactly as it had the day before, and exactly as it would tomorrow. Quintus joined Gaius before sunrise. He carried a rolled parchment under his arm. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted with a smile. "I kept thinking about the carving." Gaius nodded. "So did I." The old miller had lived beside this building for most of his life, yet there were still mysteries hidden within its stones. Together, they returned to the lower water chamber. The cool air smelled of damp limestone and flowing water. The great oak axle passed above their heads. Every few seconds, the enormous gears released a soft wooden creak. Not a sound of weakness, a sound of age, like an old tree swaying gently in the wind. Quintus carefully unrolled his parchment. It contained drawings of Roman mills from many different provinces. Some stood beside mountain streams, others beside broad rivers. A few had already fallen into ruin. Near the corner of the map, the same mysterious symbol appeared again, a circle surrounded by 8 wheat stalks. Titus leaned closer. "They're identical." Quintus nodded. "I've found this mark on only 4 mills, all hundreds of miles apart." Gaius looked thoughtfully at the drawing. Perhaps it was the builder's signature. Quintus smiled. Roman architects often signed great temples, but ordinary mills? He gently shook his head. Very few people remembered the engineers who fed the empire. That morning, instead of beginning work immediately, Gaius led Quintus and Titus outside. They followed the narrow stone channel carrying water toward the wheel. Every section had been carefully shaped by hand. Large, flat stones formed its walls. Small wooden gates controlled the flow. Not a single drop of water was wasted. The traveler knelt beside the channel, running his hand gently across the smooth stone. "The workmanship is extraordinary." Gaius smiled proudly. "My grandfather always said, 'The river is our strongest worker, but only if we guide it gently.'" Further upstream, the channel widened into a peaceful pond. Water lilies floated upon the calm surface. Dragonflies skimmed quietly above the water. An old willow tree leaned gracefully over the bank. Its branches almost touched the reflection below. Titus looked around in amazement. "I've never walked this far." Gaius laughed softly. "Most people admire the wheel. They forget where the water begins." While they rested beneath the willow, an elderly shepherd approached with his flock. He greeted Gaius warmly. Then he noticed Quintus's maps. "Still studying old mills?" Quintus smiled. "I am." The shepherd nodded thoughtfully. "My grandfather used to tell a story about the first man who built this one." Everyone listened. "He said the builder refused payment. He accepted only one promise." "What promise?" Titus asked. The shepherd looked toward the flowing river. "That every future miller would protect the river before protecting the mill." The old shepherd continued slowly toward the hills. His sheep followed without hurry. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound came from the gentle flow of water through the ancient channel. Quintus finally folded his map. "I've spent years studying Roman engineering," he said quietly, "but perhaps the greatest design wasn't the mill itself." He looked at the peaceful river winding through the valley. It was teaching generations to live alongside the water
instead of trying to conquer it.
The gentle sound of the river lingered in everyone's thoughts as they returned to the mill. Morning sunlight now filled the valley. The great water wheel turned with its familiar rhythm, slow, steady, faithful, exactly as it had yesterday, exactly as it would tomorrow. The traveler, Quintus, smiled. "I think I've been listening to the wheel, but only today I finally heard the river." Gaius nodded quietly. The river has always been the true miller. Inside the mill, work had already begun. Farmers arrived one after another with sacks of fresh wheat. Some carried barley, others brought rye or oats. Each harvest was carefully weighed before being poured into the great wooden hopper. Titus recorded every delivery inside a thick leather ledger. His handwriting had become steadier with each passing season. One day, the book would belong to him, just as it had once belonged to Gaius, and before that, to Gaius's father. In the entrance stood an old balance scale made from oak and bronze. It was nearly as old as the mill itself. Every morning, Gaius tested it with a smooth river stone of known weight. He trusted the scale, but he trusted honesty even more. "If the measure is fair," he often said, "the bread will be fair too." No farmer ever questioned his judgment. A young boy entered carrying only a very small sack of grain. He looked nervous, perhaps 10 years old. His clothes were patched carefully. His sandals had seen better days. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "This is all our family harvested." Gaius smiled warmly. "Then today, this is more than enough." The boy looked surprised. "You'll still grind it?" "Of course. The size of the harvest never changes its importance." Titus carried the little sack to the hopper with the same care he gave the largest wagons. Quintus noticed. "You treated that grain exactly the same." Titus looked confused. "Shouldn't I?" Quintus smiled. "I was simply happy to see that you did." While the millstones quietly worked, the young boy wandered toward the water wheel. He stood watching its great paddles rise slowly from the river. Gaius joined him. "When I was your age, I believed there were giants hidden inside the mill." The boy laughed. "What changed your mind?" Gaius looked toward the flowing water. "I realized the strongest giant was the river." At midday, the scent of fresh bread drifted across the valley once again. Helena arrived carrying another basket. Today, she had baked small round loaves for the children helping with the harvest. She handed one to the young boy. Fresh from the oven, he accepted it with both hands. "Thank you." Helena smiled. "Thank the mill." The boy turned toward the slowly turning wheel. For a moment, he almost seemed ready to bow. Everyone laughed gently, even Gaius. Later that afternoon, Quintus climbed the narrow wooden stairs leading to the attic. Few visitors ever came here. The room was filled with old tools no longer used, broken wooden gears carefully stacked against one wall, bundles of spare oak pegs, ancient ropes, and dusty shelves lined with forgotten objects. Sunlight entered through a tiny window beneath the roof. Tiny particles of flour floated through the light like falling snow. In the far corner, Quintus discovered a long wooden chest. Its lid was carved with flowing water surrounding a mill wheel. Unlike the other storage boxes, this one carried no lock, only a simple wooden latch. He opened it carefully. Inside, resting upon folded linen, lay dozens of smooth wooden measuring cups, each one beautifully carved by hand. Some were small enough to fit inside a child's palm, others large enough to measure an entire basket of grain. Beside them rested a single folded parchment. Its ink had faded with time. Gaius unfolded it gently. Across the top,
Someone had written only one sentence: "Measure every harvest with fairness, because every loaf begins here." Below the writing appeared the same mysterious symbol, a circle surrounded by 8 tiny stalks of wheat. Quintus smiled quietly. "We've found it again." He looked out through the attic window toward the turning water wheel. "I have a feeling whoever left this symbol was building far more than mills."
The afternoon drifted peacefully into evening. Golden sunlight rested gently upon the river. The great water wheel turned with the same patient rhythm it had followed all day. Turn after turn after turn. Its steady movement had become the heartbeat of the valley. Children no longer counted its rotations. The farmers no longer noticed its sound. Yet somehow, life felt complete because it was always there. Quintus remained in the attic long after Gaius and Titus had returned downstairs. The old wooden measuring cups fascinated him. Each one was carefully carved from oak. Each carried tiny marks showing exactly how much grain it could hold. No two were identical, yet together they formed a complete collection, almost as though someone had planned them long before the mill was built. Gaius climbed the narrow staircase carrying a small oil lamp. "I thought you might still be here." Quintus smiled. "I keep finding more questions." The old miller laughed softly. "That's usually a good sign." Together, they examined the measuring cups one by one. Some had names carved on their handles, not family names, simple words: harvest, river, bread, patience. One cup carried only a single carving, a small wheat stalk enclosed within a circle, the same mysterious symbol. Quintus gently traced it with his fingertip. "It appears everywhere." Gaius nodded, "and yet no one remembers who carved it." As evening approached, the last wagons departed from the mill. The valley slowly became quiet once again. Titus swept away the day's remaining flour. He carefully covered the millstones with clean linen, not because they needed protection, but because his grandfather had always done the same. Some traditions continued simply because they felt right. Outside, the river reflected the orange colors of the setting sun. A flock of swallows skimmed across the water before disappearing toward the western hills. The willow branches swayed gently in the cool breeze. Nearby, an elderly fisherman untied his small wooden boat. He greeted Gaius with a smile. "You've had another busy day." Gaius nodded. "The river has been generous." The fisherman laughed. "It usually is." After supper, Quintus unfolded his growing collection of maps across the long oak table. He had carefully marked every ancient Roman mill he had visited. One by one, he connected them with charcoal lines. Titus watched with growing curiosity. "They almost form a circle." Quintus was surprised. He stepped back. The young apprentice was right. The oldest mills, the ones carrying the mysterious wheat symbol, were arranged around the empire like quiet guardians, not protecting cities, not guarding armies, but feeding ordinary people. Gaius studied the map in silence. "My father once told me the greatest Roman builders were never the most famous. They were the ones who made everyday life easier." He pointed toward the river outside. "A bridge lets you cross. A road lets you travel. A mill lets you eat."
The room fell wonderfully quiet. Only the crackling fireplace and the distant turning of the water wheel could be heard. Then, a gentle knock sounded at the front door. Marcus, an elderly courier from a neighboring valley, stood outside, carrying a small leather satchel. "You've brought something," he said with a smile. "It was found during repairs to an old abandoned mill several days from here." From his satchel, he carefully removed a flat stone tablet wrapped in cloth. Its surface was worn smooth with time. Across the center, carved deeply into the stone, was the familiar circle surrounded by 8 stalks of wheat. Below it, for the first time, there was also a name. Not of an emperor, not of a governor, but of a humble Roman engineer. Aelius Marcellus. Quintus stared at the inscription. After years of searching, the forgotten builder finally had a name. The man who quietly designed mills that would feed generations had almost disappeared from history. Almost.
The little stone tablet rested quietly upon the oak table. For a long time, no one reached for it. The fire crackled gently in the hearth. Outside, the river continued its endless journey beneath the evening sky. The great water wheel turned as faithfully as ever. Nothing in the valley seemed to know that a forgotten name had finally returned to the world. Quintus carefully brushed away the last traces of dust from the stone. The carved letters became clearer. Aelius Marcellus. He whispered the name slowly, almost respectfully. "I've searched for this builder for years," he said softly. "I believed he never signed his work." Gaius smiled. Perhaps he never expected anyone to look. Titus leaned closer. Who was he? Quintus thought for a moment before answering. No emperor, no famous general, no wealthy senator, only an engineer. But perhaps one of the most important engineers Rome ever had. The young apprentice looked puzzled. "I've never heard of him." Quintus nodded. "Neither has almost anyone else." He slowly unrolled another old parchment. Unlike his maps, this one contained copies of faded Roman records gathered from distant libraries. Most mentioned roads. Others described bridges, aqueducts, harbors. Then, near the bottom of one page, a single sentence caught everyone's attention. Engineer Aelius Marcellus recommends that every mill be built beside a living river and cared for by families rather than soldiers. Gaius looked up quietly. Families rather than soldiers. Quintus nodded. He understood something extraordinary. Outside, rain began falling gently upon the valley. Not a storm, only a peaceful evening shower. Raindrops tapped softly against the clay roof. The river welcomed every drop without complaint. The great water wheel turned as ever. Its steady rhythm never changed. Titus smiled. "The rain almost sounds like another gear." Gaius laughed quietly. Nature has always been the finest craftsman. The following morning, the rain had washed the countryside clean. Every leaf sparkled beneath the sunlight. The river flowed slightly faster than yesterday. Its fresh current gave the great wheel a little more strength. The millstones hummed with quiet confidence. Farmers soon began arriving once again. each wagon carried another small piece of the valley's harvest. Life continued exactly as it always had. Among the morning visitors, an elderly baker arrived carrying something unusual. Not bread, a wooden loaf mold. Its smooth surface had become dark with age. "My grandfather gave me this," he explained. "He told me it was carved from the first oak tree planted beside the mill." Gaius accepted it carefully. The wood felt surprisingly warm. Near the handle, almost hidden beneath years of use, appeared the familiar symbol, a circle surrounded by 8 wheat stalks. Everyone smiled. It seemed the mysterious builder had quietly left his mark everywhere, not to claim glory, but simply to remind people of the purpose behind his work. That afternoon, Quintus followed the river farther upstream than ever before. The valley grew quieter with every step. Wildflowers covered the banks. Ancient willow trees leaned gracefully over the flowing water. Then, half hidden beneath vines and moss, he noticed something unexpected: an ancient arch. Only part of it remained above the ground. The rest had disappeared beneath centuries of soil. He brushed away loose leaves. The stones were expertly fitted together. No mortar, no gaps, just perfect craftsmanship. He looked back toward the mill in the distance. The arch seemed to point directly towards it, almost as though it had once carried water or marked the beginning of an older channel. When Gaius finally joined him, the old miller stared in silence. "I've walked this river for 40 years, he whispered, "and I've never seen this." Quintus smiled gently. "I don't think this was built for the mill." He looked along the hidden line of stones disappearing beneath the hillside. "I think the mill was built because this ancient channel was already here." The hidden stone arch remained silent beneath its blanket of moss. For centuries, rain had fallen upon it, leaves had gathered around it, roots had slowly wrapped themselves between its ancient stones. Yet it had endured, patiently waiting for someone to notice. Quintus knelt beside the weathered structure. He gently brushed away another layer of earth with his hands. The craftsmanship was unmistakably Roman. Every stone had been cut with remarkable precision. Not a single crack had appeared despite the passing centuries. Gaius stood quietly beside him. "I've crossed this river since I was a boy," he said softly. "I thought I knew every bend." Quintus smiled. "The oldest places often keep their greatest stories hidden." Titus carefully followed the line of stones disappearing beneath the hillside. "They continue this way," he pointed, "as though something is buried beneath the meadow." The 3 followed the ancient line together. Only small sections appeared above the ground. Most of the channel had disappeared beneath grass and wildflowers. Every few yards, another carefully shaped stone emerged, then vanished again. The traveler could almost imagine clear water flowing through it long ago, not rushing, only moving gently towards its destination, exactly as Roman engineers intended. After nearly half an hour, the hidden channel led them to a quiet clearing. At its center stood the remains of a circular stone basin. It was shallow, beautifully carved. Its edges had become smooth through hundreds of years of rain. Tiny violets now grew inside it. Tiny butterflies drifted lazily above the flowers. Nature had quietly claimed the place, without destroying it, only softening it. Quintus slowly walked around the basin. Then he noticed something extraordinary. A narrow groove had been carved into the stone. It pointed directly towards the river. Another groove faced the distant mill. Gaius looked thoughtfully. valley. It guided the water. Quintus nodded. Not only the water, the entire valley. Titus frowned slightly. I don't understand. Quintus smiled. The first engineers didn't simply build a mill. They designed the whole landscape. The river, the channels, the ponds, the fields. The mill came later. It was only one part of a much larger idea. Gaius looked across the peaceful valley. So the river has been feeding this land for much longer than the mill itself. A gentle breeze carried the scent of wild thyme across the clearing. Birdsong echoed softly among the trees. The place felt wonderfully calm. No grand monument, no towering temple, only quiet engineering serving ordinary people. Quintus sat upon one of the old stones. I think Aelius Marcellus understood something. What? Titus asked. He believed the greatest buildings should disappear into nature so perfectly that future generations would forget where nature ended and human hands began. As the afternoon sunlight warmed the clearing, Gaius noticed another small carving hidden beneath a patch of moss. He cleaned it carefully. Once again, the familiar circle surrounded by 8 wheat stalks appeared, but this time there were words beneath them, very small, very invisible. Quintus leaned close enough to read them. Water shared is life shared. The three stood silently. No emperor's name, no dedication to Rome, only a quiet reminder meant for ordinary people. On their walk back towards the mill, the valley looked somehow different. The fields seemed more carefully arranged, the ponds more purposeful. Even the willow trees appeared to have been planted exactly where they belonged. Titus smiled. I always believed we inherited the mill. Gaius looked towards the slowly turning water wheel in the distance. Perhaps, he said softly, we inherited an entire way of living. That evening, as sunset painted the river in shades of gold and amber, Quintus spread all his maps across the mill's long oak table once again. This time, he added the hidden channel, the ancient basin, the forgotten stone arch. Slowly, a remarkable pattern emerged. Every line, every channel, every mill he had visited followed the same gentle design, not built to dominate rivers, but to cooperate with them. Then, at the very bottom of one faded map, he noticed something he had somehow overlooked, a tiny handwritten note, barely visible after centuries. It read, "The greatest mill is not yet been found." Quintus looked up at Gaius, his eyes filled with quiet excitement. It seems, he said, our journey is only just beginning.
Morning arrived with a gentle silver mist drifting across the valley. The river flowed quietly beneath its veil of fog. Only the top of the great water wheel could be seen from the mill. Its steady turning created a soft rhythm that echoed through the stillness. Turn, pause, turn. The sound was as familiar as birdsong. The valley seemed to awaken with it. Quintus was already awake. The faded map lay open across the long oak table. He studied tiny handwritten note once again. The greatest mill has not yet been found. The words refused to leave his thoughts. Gaius entered carrying 3 steaming clay cups filled with warm barley tea. You've been awake since before sunrise. Quintus smiled. I couldn't stop thinking. Titus joined them a few moments later. His notebook rested beneath his arm. I marked every place we visited, he said proudly. The 3 maps now lay side by side. The working mill, the hidden water channel, the forgotten stone basin, the ancient arch. For the first time, they formed one complete picture, yet something still seemed missing. Gaius rested one finger upon the map. Look here. A narrow blue line representing the river curved gently northward before disappearing beyond the hills. I've never followed the river that far. Quintus nodded. Neither have I. The old records end there, almost as though whoever drew them wanted people to stop searching. After breakfast, the 3 set out together. The valley slowly disappeared behind them. The familiar fields gave way to quiet woodland. Tall pines shaded the river. Sunlight filtered gently through their branches. The only sounds were flowing water, rustling leaves, and the occasional call of a distant bird. The farther they walked, the older the landscape seemed. By midday, the river became narrower. Its current flowed more swiftly between smooth stone banks. Wildflowers covered the edges of the forest: foxgloves, bluebells, white daisies. Butterflies drifted lazily through the warm summer air. No roads reached this place, no wagons, no villages. Only the river continued its timeless journey. Suddenly, Titus stopped. He pointed toward the opposite bank. There, half hidden among thick ivy, stood the remains of another stone wall. Unlike the arch they had discovered earlier, this structure stretched much farther. Its carefully fitted limestone blocks formed a long, low foundation beside the river. Quintus carefully crossed, using a line of flat stepping stones. He knelt beside the weathered masonry. The craftsmanship was unmistakable, Roman. As he cleared away loose moss, a shallow groove became visible across the stone. Another, then another. Not cracks, channels, perfectly carved. They all pointed toward a wide open space now covered with grass. Gaius looked around thoughtfully. There was once a building here. Quintus nodded slowly. A very large one, larger than any mill he had seen. Scattered across the clearing, pieces of massive millstones rested where they had fallen centuries ago. Some were broken cleanly in half, others leaned against ancient oak trees that had grown long after the building disappeared. Titus gently touched one enormous stone. "I've never seen one this large." Neither had Gaius. The old miller stood silently, almost reverently. If these stones turned, they could have ground enough grain for an entire province. Near the center of the ruins, a single carved pillar still stood upright. Time had worn away nearly every decoration, yet one familiar symbol remained untouched: a circle surrounded by 8 wheat stalks. Beneath it, another inscription, this one clearer than any before. Quintus slowly read the ancient Latin aloud: "Build for those you will never meet." The words echoed quietly through the empty clearing. No one spoke. The river answered with its gentle song. As the afternoon sunlight warmed the forgotten ruins, Quintus walked slowly to the edge of the river. He looked upstream, then downstream. Finally, he smiled. "I understand now." Gaius looked toward him. The greatest mill was never meant to become famous. He turned toward the quiet valley. It was built so perfectly that when it disappeared, the people it served continued living peacefully, without ever realizing how much they owed to the quiet hands that built it.